Hey guys, welcome to video 2. You survived section 1 and you are ready to move on to section 2. So in this one we're going to be talking about emotional and mental aspects of birth. Very heavy topic, bear with me. So first thing I want to talk about is emotional changes. No matter what your situation is, whether you have a history of emotional, I don't want to say problems, emotional challenges or mental challenges, either way, pregnancy is going to change you emotionally. I used to hardly cry at anything before I got pregnant with my first, and now I cry at almost every single, car commercial, Little Einstein's episode. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're just so beautiful. And that may not be the way it is for you. Maybe you'll have the opposite effect. But no matter what, there will be things going on in your body, and it's going to affect you emotionally and mentally. And a lot of that is because of the huge amount of hormones that are just coursing through your body all the time. I think that I cry extra because I have 2 girls, and so all that extra estrogen in my system, I am just cry city. So as you're navigating through these new emotions and new levels of emotions, talk your feelings out with someone you trust, your spouse, your partner, your mom, your sister, all of them even. Just be like, hey, I just feel so emotional about such and such thing, and it's just really heavy right now. I just want to talk it out with somebody. And especially if you're talking to a fellow mom, more likely than not, you're gonna get a, I get you, girl. Because we all know. Consider joining a pregnancy support group, especially if you can find one that's super specific for what you specifically are going through. It can be a great way to connect with other new moms or other moms who have new babies that you could maybe do play dates with, and maybe get advice from each other throughout motherhood and be like, oh, I can't get this baby to sleep, what do you do? And then she can be like, well, here's the tip I tried and it worked. So having that group of sisters to lean on each other and talk to each other and vent to each other and pray for each other is such a huge tool. I highly recommend it. But also take time for yourself, and this is, I try to avoid the word self-care because I feel like self-care has become, go get your nails done, have him do the laundry, all that stuff. But I think that truly it should be much deeper than that. So I like to kind of flip it around and call it care for yourself. Care for yourself. Make sure you're taking time to analyze your emotions and thoughts and feel what's going on so that you can know how to address it and know how to explain it. Write it out in a journal. It's helpful just to get your emotions out there. Sometimes when we're writing something down or speaking something out loud, it's more clear than when we're just rolling it around in our brains. So take time to yourself to care for yourself. And sometimes that's going to look like pampering. Sometimes it's going to be taking a nice long soak in a bath and, going to your favorite store or something like that. But explore the variety of things. Do I need to talk to someone? Do I need to get a project done that I've been working on? It's you don't stop being a person just because you're pregnant. But pregnancy is all consuming, and it's your whole body's pregnant. And don't be afraid to ask for help when you get overwhelmed. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to add a few more things to your husband's honey-do list. You don't want to get to a point where you're in a domino of stress and exhaustion and pregnancy symptoms and you just can't seem to get on top. It's okay. The dishes can wait. It's fine. I promise they won't burst into flames. And if someone comes over and your house is a wreck, again, the house will not burst into flames and your friend will not burst into flames. We all understand and we all know. The other thing I want to talk about is weight gain. The reason I put weight gain in the emotional and mental changes is because a lot of times it can hugely affect a mom emotionally. It definitely takes a mental and emotional toll, especially when they're being told by care providers, you're gaining too much weight or you're not losing enough weight or whatever it is. So I just want to go over it a little bit and talk through it. So how much you gain is different for everyone in every pregnancy. And I say every pregnancy. So if it was a certain way for you in the first, it'll be different every single time, more likely than not. And that's okay. That's normal. And I don't want you to focus on numbers, but I will give you the general numbers. The general numbers are 25 to 35 pounds if you were at a healthy weight before pregnancy, and then 15 to 25 pounds if you were overweight, and 28 to 40 pounds if you were underweight. So that being said, these are not hard and fast numbers. And it's important that no matter what care provider you go with, that you find a care provider, especially if you are an overweight mom, for you to find one that is supportive of you and not fat shaming you. I cannot emphasize that enough, because too often mothers get fat shamed while they are pregnant and then attempt to try to lose weight while they are pregnant. You should not lose weight while you are pregnant. Do not do it. It is not healthy to attempt to lose weight while you are pregnant. It doesn't benefit you, doesn't benefit the baby, it doesn't benefit anybody. Personally, I don't like to advocate for losing weight or gaining weight. I advocate for feeling healthy and making healthy choices. And if you're making healthy choices and if you're exercising regularly, drinking the water you need to drink and eating the food you need to eat, and you're 250 pounds, you're 250 pounds and beautiful. It does not matter what the numbers on the scale say. What matters is that you make healthy choices. Don't not get those pregnancy photos because you don't feel like you look pregnant. You are so stunningly beautiful. You are creating life. Like, cells are multiplying inside you, and a person with their own consciousness, their own feelings, their own future, their own possibilities is growing inside your body. You're stunning. You deserve those pregnancy photos. And even if you don't want to share them on Facebook, I don't care. Even if you can't afford them, get a friend with a cell phone to take a couple of pictures of you to put in a scrapbook. Even if it's just for you and your kids to look at, you deserve it. And you are gorgeous. Now, I think you should share them with the world because you're gorgeous, but whatever. Just make sure that you are not being down on yourself and feeling discouraged because, oh, I'm not a certain weight. Oh, I'm just like, I don't look pregnant or whatever. So be in an open conversation with your care provider about your weight, but make sure that it is a positive conversation. If they are being negative, and I don't mean, medically they have to tell you certain things like, hey, I noticed that your number's a little higher than we like. Can we talk about, what your eating is like? What's your activity level like? They can have conversations like that. But if they're saying you're gaining too much weight, I don't like that, we might have to induce you. If they start doing stuff like that, then you're allowed to put on the brakes and go call another care provider and switch care. You are absolutely allowed to do that. And you need to be as protective over your physical being as you are over your emotional and mental being. That being is important too, and that has a huge effect on your health and your birth and all of those things. So don't let anybody tell you that you're gaining too much weight. If you're doing everything you're supposed to do, you're fine, and your baby's going to be fine. Birth is a marathon for your body, from the time labor starts, well, really from the time pregnancy starts. Your body goes through so many different things, and it's very important to be mindful of that marathon, but also be mindful of the emotional marathon of labor. The next helpful tip I'm going to work on is something called anchoring. It's a very useful psychological tool to kind of help you identify positive feelings in your past and amplify them. It's because most of the time, a lot of times with struggles that you're having, you're on the defense, trying to keep the fear at bay, trying to keep the anxiety at bay. But this time you're kind of more welcoming positive feelings in, like the courage, the confidence, or anything. So again, this is something that's down below, the steps are, so that you can kind of maybe find a quiet time to work through them with a notebook and all that good jazz. Your pregnancy journal would be a great place. So the first question I want you to ask yourself is, I want you to determine how you want to feel, and specifically how you want to feel about whatever's causing you anxiety, whether it's your pregnancy or birth or afterwards or all three. What is it that you want to feel? So for this exercise, I chose to focus on wanting to feel stronger. So let's just say that I don't feel like I'm strong enough to birth a baby or strong enough to withstand the rigors of labor, so I want to feel stronger. So the second step is to remember a time when I did feel strong. Now, for me personally, when I graduated high school, I was in Africa because my parents are missionaries there. And when the time came to make the decision about college, I chose to come to the States on my own to live with my aunt and uncle and go to college when staying with them. So that getting out on my own, especially for me, because being a young girl in Africa, I couldn't really go anywhere by myself. So this was crossing an entire ocean by myself, and I felt very brave. That's the memory I'm choosing to go through this exercise with. You choose whatever time you felt whatever emotion you're wanting to feel. The next is you choose an anchor device. This can be multiple things. It has to be physically touching. So, and also preferably not one you do often. Choose a motion that you rarely, if never do, would probably be beneficial. I've heard people, like pressing their fingers together, maybe touching a pulsing part of your body, touching a certain point on your head, or I'm choosing to place my hand firmly on my heart. So the next thing you need to do is remember what you saw, heard, and felt in that memory from beginning to end. The relevant bits. I mean, obviously my journey across the ocean was like 2 days, so like I can't remember every single thing, but the relevant parts of those stories. So I'm just gonna go through, packing my bags and, putting them in the car. And as you go through these memories, it's important that you don't just say, oh yeah, I did this, and this. Try to remember what was the temperature like? Was it cold in the room? Was it hot? Who else was in the room with you? Can you hear any sounds? You want this memory to be as thorough as you can. And the second you remember that point when the relevant emotion came, like for me, it was when, probably when I got to London and I found my next gate. I remember, finding the gate. And so as soon as I remember feeling that strong feeling, just press my hand, do my anchor point, which is pressing my hand on my chest. And so remembering that feeling of strength, you want to kind of dive into it as deep as you possibly can and actually feel that, oh, I was so strong, or whatever emotion you've chosen. That is the completion of the actual anchoring. But do it several times within a few days, and then test it later. So let's just say you're feeling anxious about your pregnancy or whatever. Use your anchor point. Press down in your chest and see if do you feel stronger. And if you do feel stronger, then you have been successful in creating the anchor. So congratulations. I hope it worked. So this is just a trick to kind of help you overcome some of your fears and anxieties about labor. And it may work for you, it may not. You don't want to just be like, well, it's just a fear. You don't want to belittle it and say, oh, it doesn't matter. Now, fears are usually things that are out of our control and that we can't do anything about. So that means there's no need to be afraid of them. But that doesn't mean that there's a need to belittle them or say that they don't matter. They matter to you. And if you are thinking about it frequently and worrying about it, then it's something that's important and needs to be addressed, and not just assume doesn't matter. The other important thing is to make sure that you are affirming yourself. And this is another way to be on the defense with it, and being like, oh, I keep, hearing in my head that I'm not strong enough, or that I'm scared of all the things that'll happen. But you can counteract them with your affirmations. And affirmations can be pretty much anything that's positive. And an effective affirmation directs itself directly at what you're afraid of. So, just don't belittle anything. Analyze yourself and figure out what it is that's holding you back and whatever is making you nervous. Some of the common blocks in labor that people have are that they don't think they can birth well, that they're afraid of tearing, they're afraid of losing sexual enjoyment, they're afraid of pooping on the table. And it's okay. Nobody cares. They're afraid of C-sections. They're afraid of interventions. They're afraid of the cord being around the baby's neck. They're afraid of premature birth, labor pain, not knowing what to do if something goes wrong, not making it to the hospital on time and having a car baby, that delivery will be gross or embarrassing, being a bad parent, or that your body will never be the same again, or assault from a care provider. Now, these are just the common ones, okay? These are the ones that a lot of women feel. And if you heard one or two or all that are on your list, then, you know, all that means is that you're with a huge body of sisters who totally understands and totally gets it. But no, all of them cannot be solved by fear. So choose your affirmations that directly affect them. You know, if you're worried about a C-section, you know, just say to yourself, you know, I can do this. No matter what my birth holds for me, I can do this. There's a lot of common affirmations that are already out there online, like I soften, I open, I release is a really favorite one of mine. I can be calm, I can be relaxed is a good one. I believe in my ability to birth my baby. This is one of mine that I have made for my clients. It says, I am not afraid. And you can choose ones that are already out there, or you can make your own that's specifically talking about you. The best way to have an effective affirmation is to make sure you speak your affirmation out loud, preferably several times a day. You know, if fear is your problem, keep this in your wallet, and whenever you see it, just say aloud, I am not afraid. Don't care who's listening. Do it in your car where nobody can hear you. It doesn't matter. Saying things out loud has a power to them. And then, you know, you can use your anchor once you've established your anchor, press it in and say, I am not afraid. I can do this. Involve your partner or family member in your affirmations. Anybody who'll be at your birth, especially, let them know what your affirmation is so that they can remind you when you're in the most intense parts of labor and feel like you can't do it. They can say, you're not afraid. Or they can just say your affirmation so that you'll be like, oh, I am not afraid. It's so valuable. The last bit I want to talk about in this emotional and mental section is about your history. If you have a history of sexual assault or a trauma of some kind, it does not mean you're going to have a long, awful labor. But being aware of your history and being aware that it can sometimes affect how you feel during labor and birth is important. And definitely, again, just like all the other things we've talked about in this section, it's not good to belittle it and be like, well, it happened when I was a kid. It doesn't matter anymore. I don't think about it that often. Or, you know, I go to counseling and I'm just, you know, it's not a problem anymore. When we are in labor, sometimes the physical rigor of it, the feel of not being in control, can bring back emotions that we didn't really know were still a thing. It can also bring back muscle memory that we didn't know was a thing, especially if your history of sexual assault was a penetrating assault. Sometimes your body, whether you think about it or think that you're over it or whatever it is or not, your body may decide, you know what? I don't like being in pain in this area again, and I'm going to tense up these muscles and not let go. I'm not saying that because you had a history of assault that this is what's going to happen. And in fact, conversely, I think that you're a survivor, and that if you can survive that, you sure as hell can survive labor and birth, because this is all good. The pain is productive. It's not like the pain of an assault where it just kind of is a never-ending thing that just seems to always be floating in the back of your mind. This is something that when it is over, it is over. And it's like when you give birth to that baby and those hormones release and flood your body, it's the amnesia of labor starts almost instantly, and it's just gone. And then when you talk about even if it was a hard, long labor, when you talk about it later, it's almost going to feel like you're telling somebody else's story. The pain does not linger. The joy lingers. So, if you have a history of any kind of sexual or physical assault, anytime that you were made to feel intense pain or to feel out of control, anything like that at all, I strongly encourage you to talk to your care provider about it. Make them aware of the situation. They might have some great recommendations for help for you. Secondly, I strongly recommend reaching out to the book called Birthing Without Fear. It is a great book for releasing fears and physical blocks and mental, emotional blocks in labor and birth, written by an amazing midwife. I also recommend you finding a support group. finding a friend who has a similar history, someone that you can talk to and kind of share your feelings about. And also, I highly recommend making affirmations that specifically address whatever it is in your history that could affect your labor and birth. And talk to a doula. A doula can be a big help too. Just kind of a rundown. I want to kind of sum up everything we talked about. We talked about it's a mental and emotional roller coaster and marathon all at the same time. Prepare for it like you prepare for the physical aspects of it. Practice the anchoring thing. Maybe it'll work, and maybe it'll make a huge difference for you. Make some affirmations. Make sure that you are consciously fighting against the fear and anxiety of labor and birth instead of just pushing away the fear. You want to consciously be fighting against it. And your history matters, and don't belittle your emotional fears, your mental fears, or your history or past. Don't belittle it. It all matters. If it matters to you, it matters. So be sure to check out all the things below to kind of go through all this, and I'll see you in video 3.